Simplicity is not the goal. It is the byproduct of a good idea and modest expectations. Rand Paul. Our good idea, my friends, is to follow weekly vertical crossovers. When you have stocks and ETFs that are chartable, they are inevitably helpful. In fact, in many or most instances, they work. You will prove that to yourself if you practice trade as we encourage you to do. Very, very important. Let's jump into these charts. We see the S&P 500, the NASDAQ 100 down, bonds up, gold and Bitcoin down. Let's jump and see first with the S&P on the weekly chart, down 0.80%. What do we see this week? Well, we still have an up candle that's forming. Looks like we're probably not going to have a weekly vertical crossover with the down move on the day. Derivative oscillator still negative, losing downward momentum. Price percent oscillator might be a little less than flat. Might be heading down a little bit. Let's look at the 2-day. The 2-day had been moving up, and look at it now. That last 2-day candle finished forming on Wednesday. This Thursday candle is a booming right through the 2-day trend line. Price percent oscillator still positive, but going down. Derivative oscillator losing momentum. Half-day chart. We had a crossover at the end of the day, went from green to red. Now the derivative oscillator, which is our leading indicator, triple smooth version of the relative strength index. For those who are familiar with the relative strength index, maybe not the derivative oscillator, what you see it doing is it has been devolving since it peaked back on the afternoon of Friday the 2nd. Well, it went negative in the morning, further negative in the afternoon. Price percent oscillator crossed over going down in the afternoon. Price is right there at the 2-day, has passed through the half-day. And again, we can redraw that half-day, and that was a long-lasting half-day trend line. We can redraw that now. Not much of a trend line at this point, but it'll at least give us a visual representation that we had that crossover when we first glance at it. That's where we are on the S&P. Some weakness creeping in at the end of the week. What do we see happening on the Qs? The NASDAQ 100 down for the day 0.58%, so not a lot. Again, an up week so far. We see a little bit of shaving off of some of that upward movement on the price percent oscillator. That derivative oscillator still heading up. Look at the 2-day. You can see where things are flattening on the price percent oscillator, and the derivative oscillator dropping off for the first time in quite a while. We have a doji, almost a doji there that's forming just below the 2-day trend line, and it was a great trend line while it lasted. Let's look at the half-day. It also crossed over at the end of the day, so we'll reflect that on our chart. And again, not much of a trend line to rely on. Derivative oscillator went negative at the end of the day, along with that price percent oscillator crossing over. So do pay close attention to that. Of course, if you entered that Q's up trade back with that weekly vertical crossover, then you need to be paying close attention to that as we continue to move forward. Let's see what happens on Friday. What's up with TLT 20-year bonds? Up 0.39% for the day. And again, bonds just a booming, aren't they? I mean, just beautiful. Price percent oscillator heading up. Derivative oscillator gaining upward momentum. Beautiful on that weekly. What about the 2-day? It's a booming too. Looking great. Derivative oscillator, price percent oscillator up. Half day, we can see where things weakened at the end of the day. The first red candle we've seen in a while now. It's not a solid red. It's a slowdown in the up movement. Price percent oscillator still going up along with the derivative oscillator. So bonds are looking good for those of you who jumped into that with that 2-day recross that we had back on the 20th of May. Just again, nice. Okay, that's where we are on those charts. Let's leave bonds, go to gold. What's gold up to? Gold down for the day. I guess what's it down to? 0.07%, so just a little bit. Gold trying to rally a little bit. Price percent oscillator still negative. fairly flat, a little less than flat. Derivative oscillator still gaining some downward momentum. 2-day chart, price percent oscillator negative, but heading up. Derivative oscillator's been losing downward momentum since that started back on the 29th. And again, we still have a green up candle that's trying to form there on the 2-day. We look at the half day, and again, this is the first red candle, solid red, we've seen since all the way back on the 29th of June. So again, several days of up movement or sideways movement. First red down candle at the end of the day on Thursday. Price percent oscillator still heading up. Derivative oscillator green, but peaked back in the afternoon on Wednesday. So we'll continue to watch, see where these charts go. Can we draw something that might be a little more helpful as far as our trend lines go? And I'm going to put at the end of today's training, I'm going to put our 2 trend line trainings for you. It'll be at the end of today's video. We do have a great training for all of our subscribers. It is have a plan before pulling the trigger. Very, very important. Those of you who've taken that before, take it again. Pay attention to that. Make some notes when you do. I just can't emphasize how important it is to have a plan. Setting your profit and loss bands, knowing what you've learned from backtracking, making sure you can articulate why you're doing what you're doing. Particularly important for all of you Patreon members that are soon to get your 20 weekly vertical crossovers from the S&P 500. Have a plan before you execute a practice trade with any of those crossovers. You'll get so much more out of it. I don't tell you to do this stuff just because I want to hear myself talk. I tell you to do this stuff because it's important. So important. Now, let's go lastly to Bitcoin. Down big time for the day, 5.75%. And let's start first with the weekly. Again, haven't hit that low that Bitcoin hit back on Friday, or the week ending Friday the 25th of June. But again, things did soar down today. We see the price percent oscillator heading down. Derivative oscillator still losing some downward momentum. 2-day chart. It did cross over, and now it's pretty much laminated. We can see where Bitcoin maybe's finding a bottom, maybe somewhere around that $33,000 mark, maybe. It's sliding along there, so again, we'll see just what's happening. But when you got a down day there where it shaves off a whole bunch, it was trying to move up 5.75%. That'd be killer in a stock for Bitcoin. Is just another day. And we go to the half-day chart, and again, you can see where things sandwiching over, heading down on Thursday. The price percent oscillator heading down, crossed over. Derivative oscillator sort of disappeared. It just sort of disappeared. So anyway, that is where we are on Thursday, getting ready to go in Friday. Again, friends, particularly Patreon members, look at your email tonight. Your weekly vertical crossovers are on the way. If you're interested, then by all means become a Patreon supporter. And thank you so much for all the book buyers' support. God bless, my friends. All the best from the whole team at Charting Wealth World Headquarters.